Group B at ESL 1 Cologne. The ninth CSGO major is Natus Vincer, who finished in the final of the last major. NIP, who made the round of 8 but had Threat as a stand-in. We've got Optic Gaming, the North American team, who finished highly in the qualifier. And then we have Flipside Gaming, Blade and Marklov's guys, who've never failed to make it into a major. Now, as I mentioned in my past video, each of these videos comes with an accompanying article of the storylines of the group. So if you look in the description box below, there will be one for a few storylines from this particular group. But this is going to be a video about what maps they'll play, how it should work out, and who I think will win. So one thing to note that I didn't note in the last video, in fact I didn't know, I had this information wrong, is that you don't ban down to 3 final maps and then have that randomly selected from the 3. What happens is the high seed gets to pick if they want to be Team A or Team B. Team A bans 1 map, the other one bans 1 map, and basically Team A ends up with 3 bans, Team B ends up with 2 bans, the other team picks Team B gets to pick what side they start on. And then essentially it's only random between 2 maps. Now the reason that's significant is I actually think, first of all, it means there's less randomness, but also I actually think that every single high seed should, in this format, pick to be Team A. I'll be surprised if anyone picks to be Team B, because I think it's more important to have the 3 bans. But as a result, we'll think about that as we go on. So the first match is Na'Vi versus Flipside. I expect Na'Vi to be Team A, and so let's consider Na'Vi first and foremost. Now, Na'Vi's best maps are still Train, Overpass, but actually Cobblestone has risen up the ranks for this team and become a really good map for them, whereas their Dust 2 used to be godlike, actually the last few months dropped off a cliff. Mirage, less dominant also. So I used to think of them primarily as Train, Overpass, Mirage. Mirage has dropped off a bit, Dust 2 dropped off a bit, so now it's more like Cobblestones in the mix there. Still very strong on those 4 maps though. Dust 2 in the middle at the moment. So still a strong map pool, but the inclusion of Nuke to only have to play once weakens their pool a little bit, even though I think they were dodgy on Inferno, so not as much. But they've been weakened in the middle of the map pool really. They're still gods on Train and Overpass, so people want to avoid that. But here's what's interesting, because one of the best maps of Flipside, Overpass, Train, Mirage, and then even their 4th map would probably be Cobble. So take out Cobble. In reality, Overpass and Train as the strong maps for them. Mirage is pretty decent. Well, they're 3 of Na'Vi's top 4. So as a result, if the pick ban goes correctly, these 2 teams end up on similar maps, hence why we expect Na'Vi to win big time. So in this particular scenario, I expect Na'Vi sticks with the standard cash ban. Flipside do their standard Dust 2 ban. Na'Vi, here's the thing, probably ban Nuke here because they don't want to play it anyway and they've got the 3 bans. They could float it and see if the Flipside guys ban it because neither team really wants to play it. But I expect Na'Vi just bans Nuke here. Flipside, I actually think the map they'll choose to ban is going to be Cobble, just because you think what's available. And then I actually think Na'Vi, with their last ban, will just ban Mirage. And you'll actually end up with both teams having their 2 best maps as the maps that get randomized between Overpass and Train. And well, it doesn't really matter, because I think on both maps, Na'Vi will win, actually. I mean, there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, in as much as the Flipside guys, I guess there isn't anything in it, actually. Why am I saying that? Because actually Flipside lost on all these maps to Na'Vi. So, I mean, there isn't as much as it is the domestic matchup, and you have occasionally seen Flipside have like good performances, like steal a map off Na'Vi. I still don't think it's going to happen, though. So I think this is a pretty solid for Na'Vi to win here. It's actually a dream matchup in terms of the maps. The other matchup is NIP versus Optic. Now, NIP, we know they're gods of cash. They still are. Interestingly enough, lost their last 2 on them, though. Their Cobblestone is one of their better maps as well. Only really lost a couple on that. Train, they're surprisingly good on. They've been pretty good all in all, and mainly only losing to good Train teams there. So I think those 3 maps for me are really solid. Really good, actually. Then they have Dust 2 and Mirage are like solid, but the problem is Mirage has gotten more and more unreliable over the last few months. That was only really the beginning period of the team when they got pit in that they started being good on that. And then Overpass, reasonably bad, and they don't play Nuke. So they've got a wider map pool than we might have given them the credit for early on, especially the old NIP. The problem is they've only really got those 3 good maps. Then there's like 2 in the middle, like 1 in the middle really, and 1 that's not so good. And then they're not the good at Overpass and they're not going to play Nuke. Now, here's what's interesting. The guys from Optic, what do they want to play? Well, they want to play Train. That's a map that NIP likes. They want to play Cobble. It's a map NIP likes. They want to play Mirage. Yeah, NIP's in the middle on that. Cash, they would play, but it's NIP. So let's think how this is going to go. I expect NIP picks to be Team A here. So NIP bans Overpass, their standard ban. I think the guys from Optic ban Cash because there's a lot to ban from. I think you have to ban this against NIP. You can't allow it to go through. So they just ban Cash. I think NIP is going to ban out Mirage because it's one of the decent F maps. Remember, the NIP probably wants to play Cobble and Train. It's a decent F map for the Optic guys, but NIP is just kind of middling on it. And like I said, especially if you actually look at the recent results, they're kind of be losing on that map. So they probably want to get that out there. I think the guys from Optic ban Nuke here. Certainly interesting because no one really plays Nuke. But if you're the lesser team, you probably have to get it out just to ensure it doesn't go there. Although I would gamble it maybe if you've played it secretly. I think NIP picks finally to ban Dust 2 so that we have another scenario with the two best teams for where for NIP this is two of their top 3 maps, and for Optic this is two of their top 3 maps. This is Train and Cobble as the randomizer. Now, such as in the Na'Vi scenario, I don't think it actually matters which of the two comes out. Like, I think Optic has an equal chance on both. I think NIP should win this matchup. But I will note that actually I don't think it's impossible. I mean, we know Optic managed to beat NIP on Cobble on LAN. So that's certainly out there. I do think that the Train of NIP is actually better than their Cobble, even though they've got a slightly better record on Cobble. So I think if it comes Cobble, that the chances for Optic are a little higher. Like, I think they'd be like a 60-40 underdog, like 40%. I think they can upset there if things go well. I think NIP should win on Train. So overall, I think NIP is going to win this anyway. And we'll get the expected upper bracket. So the upper bracket for me will be Na'Vi versus NIP. Na'Vi will choose to be Team A. I'm saying every higher seed does. I think Na'Vi bans Cash as usual. I think Nip ban Overpass as usual. Both of those make sense. Very strong maps for the other team, and they're perma-bans anyway. Now, here's what's interesting, because who the fuck bans Nuke? Well, I mean, since Na'Vi's out there, and they've got 3 bans, I'm going to assume they just go ahead and ban Nuke, even though they could try and float it, just to see if Nip has to ban it, but I don't think they will. So I think Na'Vi will actually ban Nuke, and I think Nip will ban Mirage. Still a strong enough map for the guys from Na'Vi. Not a map that Nip necessarily wants any part of. So I think the last ban, Na'Vi should just ban Dust 2 so that we end up with Cobble or Train. Now, Cobble or Train, 2 of NIP's best maps, right? Also 2 of Na'Vi's best maps. So I think in this scenario, this group, by the way, is fantastic for the maps that we can end up with if people just ban intelligently. We can have teams playing on their best maps all the time, which is going to be very rare for a randomized tournament. So I think Cobble and Train. Now, I still have to favor Na'Vi on both maps. I think both, they're just so good on T-side, especially Train. It's still going to be hard. I want to see that map. I hope it comes Train. I think that'll be a fantastic game. I think I edge Na'Vi on both of these, though. So I have Na'Vi coming out of the group in first place. So the lower bracket map, Flipside versus Optic. Optic is the highest seed. I expect them to pick to go first. Now, here's what's interesting is Optic can come out the gate. Okay, you'd think they're going to ban Dust 2, but they could float that because we know Flipside isn't a Dust 2 team, so they could try and force Flipside to ban it. So Flipside only gets 2 bans. That's what's interesting. I still think Optic probably thinks, well, we have 2 bans, just bans it outright. Because these are also teams that have maps that they enjoy, remember? This is what's interesting about this group that's inadvertent, is that they all have a shared map pool. So I think Optic bans Dust 2, I think Flipside bans Nuke. I think Optic bans Cash, and because obviously it's not a map that they're super good on. It's not a great map for the Flipside either, but whatever. I think Optic just gets it out there. I think Flipside, given the choices that are left, I mean, all that's left right now is Cobble, Overpass, Train, Mirage. I think actually Flipside's going to ban Cobble, even though it's an okay map for them. I don't think it's a good map for them, but I know it's one that they like to play a lot. So I think they're just going to ban Cobble since it's a strong map for Optic, and we know they want to keep Train in there. I think Optic at this point just ban Overpass last. So we actually get a randomized Train or Mirage. Now here's what's interesting. If it comes Train, I'm going to favour Optic to win this. And actually, I do think that Flipside has the upset chance. I mean, we have seen Flipside obviously be very good on this map. It's one of their best maps. I still think overall, I like Optic more on this map. I think they're a better team. I especially think that they'll have a more solid CT side actually on this map, where I've seen some weird letdowns from the Flipside guys every now and then on CT side. If it comes to Mirage, I actually think Flipside can win it that way. So this is one of the few ones where I think the map purely decides it. I think that if it comes to Mirage, Flipside's got just enough to do it. I think this is going to be a close matchup actually just because of maps. So I actually think in this scenario, I'm going to say Optic because I give them overall the better chance over the two. So I think Optic wins this and goes to play NIP in a best of 3 decider. And obviously best of 3, we're not using the same system. You just ban one, pick one, decider. So I think this time in a rematch of the first game between the two, what's different is that the first time around, they both banned out their permabans, right? And guess what? I think they do the same again. Because if you think about it, Nip doesn't want to play Overpass their permaban. That's a good map for Optic. You go over to the guys for, I mean, it's not like a sick map. It's like okay, I'll change that. It's an okay map for Optic. It's an okay to the bottom end of the map pool. What I mean to say is Nip's going to ban Overpass because they're a permaban. So I expect that to happen no matter what. Because Nip usually is either going to ban that Or, let me think, what else would they pick to ban usually? I think that's almost certain they ban that. So they just ban Overpass. I think it'd be smart not to, though, and to gamble it here, because I don't think that the guys from Optic are gonna pick it. There's no threat to, in my opinion. So I think Nip bans Overpass. I think Optic bans Cash because they have to. So I think Nip actually picks Train, and I think Optic pick Cobble. So we've got two fantastic maps for both teams. Then the decider is between Mirage. Let me think. Mirage, Nuke, and Dust 2. Now, here's what the randomizer could fuck us. Because if it comes Mirage, goody. Both teams can play it. If it comes Nuke or Dust 2, I mean, Dust 2 would heavily favour NIP. Nuke would favour no one, I think, in that scenario. So you just have to hope it doesn't come in that scenario. So here's the thing. I mean, the maps are there for Optic to have a chance, but when it is NIP or a best of 3, I still got to favour NIP to win this. So I still think NIP wins. Now, it might be 2-1. Certainly could be 2-0. I think it's unlikely Optic gets the upset here, even though obviously on both maps they have some potential for Train and Cobble to get it. But I think when you add in the randomizer as well, I think this should be an NIP 2-1 win or 2-0, probably 2-0 if we're being real. So as a result, I think NIP comes out in second of this group. Right, remember, if you want to read some storylines for this group, because obviously there's some quite sexy ones here, as I've been kind of alluding to with the map pool and some other things, they'll be in the description box below on gamers.com.